Hello everyone and good evening. My name's Don Arleth and welcome to World News Tonight, coming to you live from Warsaw. Siarhei Tsikhanouski and 13 other political prisoners, including 3 Polish citizens, have been released from prison in Belarus after the U.S. Special Envoy meets with Alexander Lukashenko. While this is good news, still there are 1,150 political prisoners who remain behind bars in Belarus. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, the latest headlines. Pakistan to nominate genuine peacemaker Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. Tough times ahead for Romania as new president and prime minister slash government spending. And Ukrainians celebrate Ivana Night in Warsaw. Belarusian oppositionist and political prisoner Siarhei Tsikhanouski has been released from prison along with 13 others. This comes as U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine Keith Kellogg paid a diplomatic call to Belarus on Friday to meet with self-proclaimed President Alexander Lukashenko. Kellogg is the most senior U.S. official to visit the isolated nation in years, and his trip comes amid intense diplomatic efforts to end Russia's war against Ukraine. Anastasia Yanchenko reports.
The good news was shared by Ivana Tsikhanouskaya on social media, where she posted a video of the two of them hugging, confirming that her husband Siarhei is alive and free.
My husband Siarhei is free. It's hard to describe the joy in my heart. Thank you, President Donald Trump, Special Envoy Keith Kellogg, John P. Cole, Deputy Assistant Secretary Christopher W. Smith, and all our allies for all your efforts. We're not done. 1,150 political prisoners remain behind bars. All must be released.
Alexander Lukashenko's regime arrested Siarhei Tsikhanouski in 2020, the then Belarusian opposition presidential candidate and Lukashenko's direct opponent. A total of 14 people were released today, among them 3 Poles. The list does not include Andrzej Poczobut, a Polish journalist and activist of the Polish minority in Belarus. He was arrested in 2021 and sentenced to 8 years in prison in 2023 for his critical reporting on protests against the Lukashenko regime.
The free world needs you, Siarhei. My sincerest joy goes out to you, Ivana Tsikhanouskaya, and your entire family. Seeing you together again shows why years of struggle for freedom matter. We will continue to strive to free the rest, including Andrzej Poczobut. Thank you, General Kellogg, for securing safely the release of 14 political prisoners in Belarus.
U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine Keith Kellogg was in Minsk with other U.S. officials and met with the Belarusian president. This was part of ongoing efforts to ease relations between Belarus and the West. News of Kellogg's visit came as a surprise this week, quickly echoing through both the local and international media.
You made a lot of noise in the world with your visit, but I don't understand why. Can't we just have a normal conversation about our relations, about Belarus and the US?
The visit to Russian President Vladimir Putin's closest ally came at a time when peace talks between Ukraine and Russia remained stuck, with no real progress after 2 negotiation rounds in Istanbul.
This shows that they are playing on the cards Putin is giving them. We know that for Lukashenko, big goal is to somehow normalize relations with United States. That's why Washington can ask for really more.
According to Belarusian media, Lukashenko and Kellogg also discussed the global political situation and ongoing crises.
We live in very, very perilous times, and the constant concern that we have is a crisis that could escalate and grow if we are not only cautious, but wise.
This was the first time in years that a U.S. government official had met with the Belarusian leader in person. The last high-level visit was in 2020, when Secretary of State Mike Pompeo came to Minsk following large-scale protests over the presidential election results. Thousands of protesters were arrested, with many of them detained. Until this moment, Lukashenko had been isolated from the main democratic partners. However, according to some experts, this action will not be a sign of Lukashenko's full acceptance as a legitimate partner.
I don't believe that Lukashenko will be treated as a legitimate partner. He will not, and American U.S. administration they say that they will not. But he's in power. That's why there are some contacts.
Earlier, Lukashenko said he was ready to host and mediate peace talks between Ukraine, the US, and Russia, proposing Belarus as the venue for the negotiations. Still, around 1,150 political prisoners remain in Belarusian prisons. This report for TVP World by Anastasia Yanchenko.
Now to the Middle East, where 9 days of tit-for-tat airstrikes have thrust Iran and Israel to the brink of a wider war. While Washington and Europe struggle to revive diplomacy over Tehran's nuclear program, the United States has yet to become directly involved in the conflict. However, U.S. President Donald Trump said this week that he is, quote-unquote, considering his options, leaving the possibility wide open. Alexandra Bulenda reports.
Before dawn, cameras over the Israeli-occupied West Bank captured yet another volley of Iranian missiles striking across the sky on Saturday, only to be intercepted in a blaze of anti-rocket fire. Tehran says the Israeli raid that triggered Saturday's exchange reached the grounds of one of its largest nuclear sites. Jerusalem counters that all 5 incoming ballistic missiles fell short. Initial reports cite 1 teenage fatality in Iran and injuries on both sides of the front line. Asked whether Washington's allies can dial down the escalation, U.S. President Donald Trump poured cold water on European mediation.
Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this.
That remark landed just hours after Iran's foreign minister met European counterparts in Geneva, talks that ended with no breakthrough.
We have come, unfortunately, to the conclusion that the United States has been in this aggression from the beginning. You know, they deny, they keep saying that they are not involving, but we have many indications that they have been involved from day one.
Meanwhile, France insists a diplomatic lane still exists. President Emmanuel Macron stated on X that he and Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian agreed to accelerate negotiations with European partners.
I am convinced that a path exists to end the war and avoid even greater dangers. To achieve this, we will accelerate the negotiations led by France and its European partners with Iran.
Analysts speaking to TVP World say the path narrows each day, the bombs keep falling.
The reality here is that Trump is not in control of the situation. The reality here is that Trump has been played by the Israelis.
Israel's first strike on June 13th, justified in Tel Aviv as a bid to stop Iran from going nuclear, has fed fears of a region-wide conflagration. Iran insists its program is peaceful. Israel, believed to hold some 90 nuclear warheads of its own, remains unconvinced. With missiles still in the air and diplomacy grounded, the prospect of escalation now looms over every capital from Tehran to Tel Aviv and beyond. For TVP World, Alexandra Bulenda.
Could Donald Trump be in the running for a Nobel for his role in mediating the 4-day-long conflict between India and Pakistan? Islamabad said it would nominate the U.S. president for the Nobel Peace Prize, an award he seems to crave given the importance he places on peace and desire to end ongoing global conflicts. But how is Donald Trump faring when it comes to achieving world peace? Franciszek Piles takes stock in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump, long known for his bold takes and larger-than-life persona, has cast himself as a potential global peacemaker in some of the world's most volatile conflicts, especially after re-election. Just as suddenly as it began, the armed conflict between India and Pakistan over the Kashmir region ended just 4 days after the first shot was fired. According to Islamabad, Donald Trump is to be credited with putting an end to the conflict, going so far as to vow to recommend him as a pick for the next Nobel Peace Prize. India, however, claims there was no mediation done by Washington.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi clearly told President Donald Trump that during the entire course of the India-Pakistan tensions, neither the India-America trade deal nor mediation between India and Pakistan was ever discussed at any level.
Following Pakistan's gesture of appreciation for the US president, Donald Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social, that all that matters to him is the people knowing of his peacemaking efforts, simultaneously listing every single conflict he's resolved, or at the very least, tried to resolve.
I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for this. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between India and Pakistan. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between Serbia and Kosovo. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for keeping peace between Egypt and Ethiopia. And I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing the Abraham Accords in the Middle East, which, if all goes well, will be loaded to the brim with additional countries signing on and will unify the Middle East for the first time in the ages. No, I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize no matter what I do, including Russia, Ukraine and Israel, Iran, whatever those outcomes may be. But the people know, and that's all that matters to me.
As for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Donald Trump claimed he will resolve the conflict shortly after being re-elected.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after I win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, and it would have never happened.
Now, 5 months after his inauguration, the war in Ukraine remains just as much of a concrete fact of life as it was prior to Trump taking over the White House.
We don't care who negotiates, even if it is the current head of the regime. I'm even ready to meet with him, but only if this is going to be some kind of final stage, so as not to sit there and divide something endlessly, but to put an end to it. But the signature must be put by the legitimate authorities. Otherwise, the next person in charge will come and throw it all in the trash.
In recent days, under Donald Trump's watchful eye, yet another conflict broke out, once again set in the Middle East. With Washington's stance on the Iran-Israel war still largely unclear, many wonder if Trump will once again don the mantle of peacemaker, or if he'll order his jets to aid Israel in its efforts to wipe Iran's uranium enrichment program off the face of the earth, before Tehran obtains a nuclear weapon.
Trump is going to make his best effort to play peacemaker, and I think today, as we see B-2s go west as opposed to east, the long way around, that's a demonstration of force. That's messaging to Iran, look, you're at the last possible moment here in time before it gets kinetic, before the U.S. takes actual military action against you. He wants to play that role. I just doubt that Iran is going to give him that opportunity. I think this is coming to a kinetic conclusion.
With the Nobel Peace Prize awarded on December 10th, Donald Trump still has some time to make good on his promise of ending Russia's war on Ukraine, as well as collect as many peacemaking accolades as he can to try and sway the Norwegian Nobel Committee in his favor. Franciszek Pilis, TVP World.
Newly appointed Romanian Prime Minister Ilie Bogdan has got his work cut out for him, and it's very possible that he won't be very popular among Romanians. That's because his primary task will be to rein in government spending and reduce the budget deficit by 2/3. And coming in at over 9% of GDP, it's the highest in the EU. Pavel Trzaskowski reports on the Cutback Coalition.
More than half a year after the Romanian Constitutional Court annulled the first round of presidential elections, the country seems to be regaining some sort of stability as the newly elected president has finally nominated a new prime minister.
I appoint Mr. Ilie Bogdan as prime minister.
Ilie Bogdan has just stepped down as the country's interim president, and now he will be forming a new government. A big tent majority coalition composed of 4 pro-EU parties, 3 of which recently formed a coalition that collapsed. The government's main challenge will be addressing Romania's 9.3% budget deficit.
And I know it will not be an easy undertaking, but I am convinced that together with the President of Romania, with the responsible people from the political parties, and relying on the citizens of our country, we can overcome this difficult situation and put Romania back on the right path.
It seems unlikely, though, that putting Romania on the right path could be achieved without introducing unpopular reforms.
It looks like Ilie Bogdan will have to essentially sacrifice himself as prime minister to deliver all the heavy lifting, do the hard work, fix the economy.
To fix the economy, the new coalition plans to introduce major austerity measures.
But here they will raise taxes, they will set up new taxes, they will dismiss people, they will cut expenses and so on. These are all sorts of news, more or less real, but they all worry Romanians.
These plans are already causing concern and even protests in parts of the Romanian society.
We wish for a dialogue about all those austerity measures they've been publicly discussing lately. The main problem is the lack of communication between President Nicu and the labor unions, which represent those who actually voted for him, the Romanian people. You can't discuss austerity measures only with politicians.
But before the new government faces the enraged public, it must first be given a vote of confidence. However, Oana Popescu, director of the Global Focus Center and a guest at TVP World, says this vote, despite the recent volatility of Romanian politics, should be a formality.
This has been agreed, negotiated, and I expect that it's going to pass next week.
And this eventual formation of the government could be another step toward healing the political situation in Romania. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Wianki celebrations are underway in Warsaw with music, dancing and flower wreaths filling the city with summer spirit. Ukrainian traditions are also part of tonight's event thanks to the NGO Euromaidan. Our reporter Aisha Bachi is on the scene. Good evening there, Aisha. So tell me, what are Ukrainians doing tonight and how are they celebrating?
Well, good evening, Dawn. I must say that it is the most festive I've seen the beach in Warsaw. They are celebrating Kupala Night, but traditionally this Kupala Night is celebrated at the beginning of July, but it coincides with the 21st of June, which is Wianki Night here in Poland. But since they are away from home, they are celebrating at the same time. Now, what they usually do is to make flower wreaths, which usually unmarried girls are supposed to wear, dance around the fire like they are doing right now behind me, and then towards the end of the night lay the flower wreaths, so the wianki, on the river in hopes that a boy will catch it, and this would mean that maybe they will find a match. And also couples jump on top of the fire holding hands, and if they keep holding their hands, then this means they will stay together forever. Of course, this celebration has also another backdrop. The Euromaidan NGO, Ukrainian NGO, is organizing this, and we spoke to one of the organizers here. So let's hear what she had to say.
Today we are observing Ivana Kupala Day. It's a Ukrainian traditional cultural event. Because our culture is our shield and we want to be connected with our home even far from. And it is also a good event to fund money for helping Ukrainian armed forces.
Yes, indeed. So with the money that they will have raised here tonight, they will donate it to the Ukrainian armed forces to buy drones. But aside from that, they said that little Ukrainians also deserved the right to stay connected to their traditions. So this is what they're doing right now, staying connected to their traditions, even far away from home. And we feel very lucky, actually, to be here and witness this very, very festive event. So if you're here next time on June 21st in Warsaw, do come to Kupala Night and Wianki Night on the Vistula. Back to you, Dawn.
All right, well, it certainly looks exciting. What a beautiful wreath or wianki that you're wearing on your head. Aisha Bachi reporting from Warsaw. Have a good time. The western Polish city of Poznan has turned into a public stage full not only of theater lovers, but also random passers-by who happen to decide to stop and watch an open-air performance. The Malta Arts Festival is a special moment when theater is no longer reserved for closed halls, soft armchairs, and those with a ticket in hand, but enters straight into the streets. Carolina Shopland has a preview from Poznan.
The 35th Malta Festival here in Poznan is now in full swing, offering a rich blend of theatre, music, dance, visual art with a distinctive focus on open-air performances. So far, the audiences here in the old market square were given a beautiful performance by a French company, Gratte-Ciel, inviting us all to meditate on the relationship of man and nature.
For me, to look of all this old architecture and to think about how many people passed through here and the history, and also seeing the birds, seeing the sky. So it's to be in contact with the place and also to try to be in contact with nature, because this show was created in nature.
Last year, the festival was given the new lease of life under the patronage of Polish female entrepreneur and philanthropist Dominika Kulczyk.
Malta's festival message is love. This is what creates everything. This is what we all live for. That's the only thing that is actually really important and that matters, because nothing else matters.
This message of love and acceptance was brought home by the global drag artist Alaska.
The message of the Malta Festival is about love. And I mean, ultimately, isn't that what drag is about? Isn't that what Pride is about? You know, we are Pride Month, you know, we're standing up and we're saying, we do exist, we have a right to exist. And I think that's very powerful, and it brings a lot of people together. So that sounds like love to me. That sounds like Malta.
With over a week of festivals still ahead of us, Malta is proving that its motto, to love, is not just an empty phrase, but a lived, shared experience here in the heart of the city. For TVP World, I'm Karina Shapland.
And now, joining me to discuss the latest U.S. diplomatic initiative in Belarus that led to the release of 14 political prisoners, including Siarhei Tsikhanouski and 3 Polish citizens, as well as other items of the day, is Bogdan Nailo, editor-in-chief of the Kyiv Post. Good evening, Bogdan. Thank you for joining us tonight.
My great pleasure again.
Yes. Now, first, I guess the prisoner release, Keith Kellogg is the Ukraine envoy, but he's the highest ranking U.S. representative to have gone to Belarus, certainly since the invasion of your country, of Ukraine, since 2022. So I think, we're all happy that 14 political prisoners have been released. Many still remain behind bars. But from Ukraine's perspective, what do you think about this rapprochement with Belarus?
It's not a rapprochement. I think, Trump is desperate to be seen to be advancing in so-called peacemaking. The interesting question is, did Kellogg or the American administration consult with either the Belarusian opposition or with Ukraine? We simply read in the newspapers that Kellogg was about to go in a few days. It's good that, as you say, some political prisoners, including the most famous one, Tsikhanouski's husband, Sergei, who's been in prison for more than 5 years, have been released. But at the end of the day, we don't know what the game is. After all, Lukashenko is a total vassal of Moscow. He's not a free agent. He doesn't do as he pleases. He's not running a sovereign state anymore. He's running a dependency of Moscow, of Russia. And he's not in any position to negotiate with the Americans. He can go through the formal trappings, the appearance of wanting dialogue and being ready to be a go-between. But in reality, he's a puppet of Putin. Everybody knows that. So we're not quite sure what Kellogg and the Trump administration is up to. It's bad that it's being done again behind the scenes without consultation, as if America calls all the shots, which it doesn't.
Certainly. It also seems on the surface like sort of a gesture to see if Belarus can't play a role in getting Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire. Now, on that front, is this naive, thinking that the Belarusian...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I mean, let's be frank. Putin just yesterday reminded the world that the Russians believe that where a Russian soldier has stepped is already part of Russia. I mean, Poles remember that, the Czechs remember that, the Hungarians should, the Ukrainians certainly. And yesterday, again, he said publicly that Ukrainians and Russians are all just one people, and therefore all of Ukraine belongs to Russia. I mean, you know, come on, let's be frank and not try to sort of put a gloss on things.
Well, another thing that strikes my funny bone is Belarus proposing to mediate peace between Ukraine and Russia. Would that even be considered?
I'm laughing because, you know, we're hearing this from the press, but do we remember the Minsk Accords? Do we remember Lukashenko, you know, offering Minsk as a capital, as a meeting place, but being a toady and a total puppet, as I've said, of Putin. And even today, you know, Belarus is a staging area for the Russian military. He's asked, Lukashenko's asked for tactical nuclear missiles. You know, he wants to give the impression that he counts for something and that he actually is a ruler of a sovereign country. In fact, he does what his master tells him, and he begs him for the economic support and other support. And I'm not sure what the game is. I said at the outset, what game is being played here? We understand Trump wants to be seen to be a peacemaker, but after the statements from Putin yesterday, you know, it makes a total nonsense of this meeting with Kellogg, other than prisoners being released, which is important. And look, at the same time, the Russians and Ukrainians have so-called talks going on, total nonsense as far as the two positions are concerned because of the Russian zero-sum game. We want everything. But something positive emerges, that is the POW exchanges that have happened. So here we've had a handful, 14 prisoners released. We have very important prisoners like Maria Kolesnikova or Viktor Babaryaka still there. Over 1,000 political prisoners that we know of, and many, many people being detained on the streets every day simply because they've been identified in photographs as having taken part in peaceful demonstrations protesting about the rigging of the presidential election in 2020 in Belarus. So, you know, let's be clear about the background and welcome the fact that this handful of political prisoners has been released. Probably good for Lukashenko's ego. You know, I did something, I'm important, the Americans are talking to me. But in reality, who knows?
Do you think the United States, by engaging here, does this somehow prop up self-proclaimed President Lukashenko? Or how do you think that they portray this to Belarusians in Belarus?
Oh, of course, he'll play this up, and I'm important, you see. But look, he's been trying that game for years and years and years with the EU too. You know, I'll make a concession of some sort, but you make me look important. Otherwise, what? I'll flood the frontier with Poland with illegal migrants that are trying to force their way through the border and therefore put pressure on you, etc. I'll arrest clerics, Roman Catholic Polish clerics to put pressure on you, etc. One thing positive for the Ukrainian side, apart from Tsikhanouski's release and of the others, is that one of the women, a Swedish Belarusian citizen, I'm looking at her name here, Galina Krasnyanskaya, she was actually imprisoned in 2023 for having supported Ukraine. So she was arrested on the territory of Belarus, not for anti-Belarusian activities, but supporting Ukraine in its defensive war against Russia.
Well, that is very good that she was released. Well, Bogdan Nailo, editor-in-chief of the Kiev Post, thank you very much for this discussion. And I guess we nailed down that the only positive thing here is the prisoners that were exchanged. Thank you, sir.
Yes, very much so. And I'm very happy for Ivana Night.
All right, and that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.